rabid crowd the day before, and Kansas City's kind of got that vibe like Cleveland had when things started rolling for both of the teams, and of course we know very quickly things changed in 95 for the Browns, but around that time, that feeling, you guys know, and a little bit in 2007, but you can see that there. A lot of the Royals players were at the game last night, and Kansas City is going to be fired up there for their game tonight. But it's got that Cleveland at the beginning of the Renaissance, kind of the sports Renaissance feel 20 years ago. Kansas City kind of has that feel now. They've got Andy Reid in place, getting that football team together, and just what a difference he's made in his time there. I love Andy Reid. That was the guy I wanted the Browns to get. I know a lot of people wanted to go Chip Kelly. They wanted to go future quarterback. They wanted to do all that stuff, but not me. I'm an Andy Reid fella. And so anyways, but he's doing a great job there, and there you go. But yeah, Kansas City kind of giving me that Cleveland when things were really renaissance and they're together, kind of getting that vibe from him. And I mentioned the reporters with their ridiculous questions. Speaking of ridiculous rumors, I'm gonna chalk this one up to ridiculous rumors, and I know we got to get to the phones, then we got to get to a break. Jeff Gorman will be joining us, but a lot of you have hit me up last night and this morning. J-Rock, what's up with this Roy Hibbert stuff? Because rumors are flying all over the place today that the Cavaliers are looking into or making phone calls, or perhaps there's offers being bandied about to bring Roy Hibbert, the talented, tall, yet incredibly mentally fragile center from the Indiana Pacers, over to the Cavaliers. Now, look, I get it. I know this summer was fun. I know it was fun for Cavs fans to say, oh, wow, cool, this is like a video game. You can add LeBron James. Now we're going to add Kevin Love. Oh, man, we're going to add Mike Miller. We're going to add The Matrix. We're going to add this guy. We're going to add that guy. But, I mean, there's only so much of that you can do. And I know it's cool to go, hey, man, let's turn the big three into a big four. But I have to lay some reality out here for that. First off is Indiana is not standing around with a sign out front that says, allow us to give away our, all NBA, whatever, second team, whatever he was. And we know how he just disappeared in the playoffs. But they're not exactly standing out front going, hey, somebody, please, can we give away Roy Hibbert here? Especially, now, they may be interested if their management decides that they got to go a different direction because you lost George, you lost Stevenson. But part of me says that's a reason you can't go that way unless you're going to completely tear things apart, is you lost George and you lost Stevenson. So, he may have crumbled in the playoffs, but Roy Hibbert still is your guy in the regular season and can help bridge you and get you. I'm just saying. I don't know where I'm at on Roy Hibbert as a player, because the way he shrunk away from the spotlight in the playoffs really shined a light on some of the mental head case kind of things with him. And I like his talent. I like him as a big guy, but we saw that his heart can be taken, and it was taken during those playoffs. So there's that part of it. But there's also the part that, like I said, I don't think Indiana's jumping up and down and going, please, Cleveland, can we give you Roy Hibbert and this significant asset? So you're not going to get him for expiring contracts. I know you guys think David Griffin is going to work magic here, and he's done a good job of keeping flexibility in his 6 months as general manager, but you're not going to get him for John Lucas's expiring contract and, the trade exception that you got for Keith Bogans. Let's be real about this. I mean, it's going to take a trade of some value. I would think you would have to come off. And in some of the names that I've already heard, I've heard Deion Waiters, I've heard Tristan Thompson. There's going to be one or two pieces that you're going to have to put in, which is going to significantly alter what you've got left here. And people will go, well, it's worth it. Man, add Roy Hibbert to that starting lineup. Well, that's great, but you still have to worry about a second team. You still have to worry about a lot of things. Now, yeah, they do have a glaring need at center. Me personally, if Indiana's willing to trade Roy Hibbert now, they'll be even more willing to trade him after the first half of their season falls apart without their last season's top couple of scorers. So see what happens with Anderson Varejao. See what happens with Tristan Thompson. See if Haywood can bounce back and maybe fill some of that role and be healthy. I know it's hard to depend on a guy that hasn't been healthy, but it's not like You couldn't make the same statement for Verajao. And so, I know there's question marks, but there's also a lot of time to answer those. Oh, and the other thing is Roy Hibbert makes $18.5 million. So add $18.5 million to this payroll, which is already, I believe they're $12 million over the salary cap as it is now. So tell me how that works. I don't even know legally. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know legally if you're allowed to make that trade. I know you're allowed to go over the salary cap to sign your own guys, and I know you're allowed to go over the salary cap in certain types of trade deals, but I don't know if I don't think it is, because that's the whole point of having a salary exception. So somebody tell me how you're going to make that work, and you got to trade out salaries. I mean, yeah, the trade exemption will help, but you have to trade out $13 million plus your $5 million trade exemption to equal, well, you only need to equal 75% of $18.5 million. So more like 15. You're still going to have to put $10 or $11 million worth of contracts into that in order to make that happen. I'm not saying it's implausible, but the other thing too, yesterday we just talked about how you need to keep a little bit of flexibility at the back end of this roster and in the salary cap more than anything else to be able to not just add players, but deal with the salary cap issues that are going to come over the next few years. Otherwise, you're all in for 1 or 2 seasons, and then you got to strip the club apart and put in a bunch. I mean, otherwise you end up with 4 main guys and everybody else playing for the veteran minimum, playing for the league minimum around you. And that's what happened in Miami. And it got you so far. It did get you 2 championships in 3 years, but that 4th year, the bottom fell out, and then everything came from there. So you can't do that either. I don't know. I'm not sitting here going, don't trade for Roy Hibbert, because I kind of like the guy more than a lot of people do. But, man, the luster really came off of him for me in the playoffs last year. I said, oh, man. What happened to Roy Hibbert? They took his heart is what they did. They took his heart and showed it to him. And he said, yeah, you can keep it. So we'll see. But that's the latest with that. Right now it's a lot of talk. It's a lot of hullabaloo. Not saying it can't happen. As we've seen after this summer, don't count out anything as far as can the Cavaliers make that happen? Yeah, they can, and maybe they will. But I tend to think that right now, a phone call or 2 bandied about, somebody finds out about it, it becomes the big story of the day because, well, we need things to talk about here. So that's where I'm at with that. Anything that I hear, I've talked to some guys at the Cavs, anything more than smoke, I'll gladly let you guys know ASAP as soon as I find out, and we'll talk some more about this. But I'm going to go to before I go to the break, I bantered on here for the first few minutes. Before I take the break, I'm going to go to you guys. And then, hey, Jeff Gorman coming up next, talking some Tribe, Dr. Football, Doug Plagens, they're all still to come. But before we go to the first break, I'm going to allow you to kick things off here on the Sports Fix. Caller, you're first on the air.
Big
Hello.
Daddy.
Hey, Big Bob. I haven't talked to you since, things ended. So, unfortunately, I will not be building a Big Bob Fuselli statue. Unfortunately, can't build the statue for you. We fell just a bit short. But, hey, man, a lot of reason to think that if the Indians attack this off-season strategically, don't have to make a bunch of moves, just make 1 or 2 strategic moves that fill in what you need. Man, this Indians team is going to be something to deal with next year.
Absolutely, Big Daddy. Look at what we did this year. Coming out of the chute, spring training, we're down 23 wins. Too much pressure on some of our young Indian pitchers, meaning Salazar and Bauer, to try to pick up that load. It might have been a little bit too much on them, but we have the best.
That's the front
we have the best young pitching staff, not in the American League, J-Rock, in the major leagues. Okay, whoever thought this lefty T.J. House would do what he has done? I mean, come on. And then Carlos Carrasco, boom, back to the bullpen, back out. But he's going to push Killer Kluber next year for the ace. We're going to have 2 aces. You know that.
You're going.
Without a doubt.
I'm happy about Carrasco. I think Carrasco is going to be all right. He showed me some stuff, but he's got to come back and do it again before I'm ready to completely invest in that. But I'm with you. The potential is huge, man. It's huge. I think that as much as people go, all you got to do is get a bat. All you got to do is get some offense.
You know where we get our bat?
Though, but I disagree.
In our farm system. No more going out
You need a veteran
for certain players. I'm not going to mention players or anything yet because I'll start talking about the Indians after Thanksgiving, Christmas. I got to commend them, all of them, for what we have done. As I told you before, I thought maybe 80 wins this year, if that. Okay, 80, 81 wins. We went above and beyond as far as I'm concerned. Unbelievable play for this young Indian team this year.
Oh, well, I mean, in a lot of ways, I agree with you, and I definitely know where you're coming from. As far as the young pitching, you've got to get a veteran starter. I'm not talking about a 20-win starter, but I do believe that you've got to get a good 12 to 15-game veteran starter here so that we're not completely reliant on the young guys, even though they're coming into their own, as we saw this year. Everybody was a year or two ahead on their projections. Everybody's like, oh, man, Salazar is ready to be an ace. And then, man, Trevor Bauer is going to be the number 3 guy. And then, what about Corey Kluber? And what about this guy? Well, as you see, everything shook out a little differently. Some guys got where you thought they were going to go, but they didn't necessarily get there right away. They took their own sweet path to get there. So,
that's right.
You got to have, because so many fans right now are going for, we're good on pitching. We don't, no, I disagree. I think, to me, if I'm the Indians, the way I attack this offseason is I find me a good, like I said, 12, 14 win veteran pitcher out there that is willing to come to a decent price, because that's going to be the trick of it. And you may be able to trade some of the excess that you have at certain positions, fielding wise or offensively, to bring that pitcher in. It doesn't even have to be a free agent signing. But the other one is a bat. I don't think they need bats. I don't think they need a ton of things, because I know nobody wants to hear this, but I don't care. If you're thinking that Jason Kipnis is not going to be depended on by this Indians team, you're crazy. I don't care if you like him. I don't care if you're fed up with Jason Kipnis, and I don't mean you, Big Bob. I mean anybody listening. Nick Swisher, that's different. Now, I'm not dependent on Nick Swisher. I do think the Indians will be. I'm not dependent on Nick Swisher for one thing next year, but I am, as an Indian, dependent on Jason Kipnis, because he is way too part of the core plan. Maybe next year.
I agree with you 100%. That's Captain Kip. That's one of my main young Indians in a long time. You think he's going to fall flat on his keister? Absolutely not. He's probably stewing at home right now.
I hope.
Going crazy because the young Indians aren't in the playoffs. The guy's a competitor, just like Carrasco, who said a few things that some of the players might have not liked, but he came back and apologized. He's a competitor. These guys are competitors. This whole young Indian team is unremarkable in how they competed this year. And what they have had, like I said, they put a little bit too much on the young Indian staff. But all in all, Salazar, Bauer, TJ, they all came along. And and next year, sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. And
here's the other thing. And for people that want to look past this and just say, oh, well, because the people that have disagreed with me for the last 48 hours have, of course, the Dolans, and they're cheap and all of that. And listen, you guys know that I feel your pain on some of that, because I don't just wipe the slate clean and go, oh, man, the Dolans are great owners. They've got their flaws just like all of them, man, and they've had their cheap moments over the years. But what happened this year, I look at people and I go, okay, forget everything else. Forget Kipnis, forget Swisher. Let's just take all the players off the table. How is this front office? Are you telling me that they were cheap and that's why they didn't predict that their team would have 116 errors? Because to me, The front office has nothing to do with that. The Dolans have nothing to do with that. I have my questions about the Dolans and about the front office on other stuff, but that's not one of them. How could you say, well, you couldn't have planned for a team to commit 30 more errors than they did the season before, and for it to be